What's up guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the Mage Tower and how to obtain 70% versatility on any spec in the game using 3 very easy to obtain war within items, as well as additional tips for gearing, enchants, gems, and consumables, while keeping that information contained to stuff that is actually relevant and not hitting you with this deluge of nonsense information like chromie time farming and overall 1% min-maxing that would only waste your time. I'll talk very briefly at the end of this video about how to get into stuff like that, but we're just going to stick with the big stuff. Following these tips will double your character's primary stat in the tower, give you a nice boost of stamina, while ignoring the 1% gains and how to min-max the last 25 primary stats over 8 or 9 pieces of gear. This video is timestamped, so if you want to jump directly to the section you're looking for, you can find that in the description below, as well as on the video player timeline. As we get into the video, it's important to know that you don't have to do all of this or any of it to complete your challenges, as evidenced by the strategies I recommend in my Mage Tower guides. I've linked the most recent and relevant guides in the description below. Be sure to check those out. And we're also going to hit you with a new guide for every spec in Season 3. So be sure to sub to the channel to stay in the loop for those videos. Like this video to help promote it across YouTube. Hit me up in the comments, let me know what specs you're looking for Mage Tower guides, what you're playing next season so we can prioritize the Season 3 Delve boss guides, and certainly any questions you have about this video. Currently, the Mage Tower offers recolors of Tomb of Sargeras mythic tier sets for every class, minus Evoker of course, the Soaring Spelltome mount for completing each unique challenge once, the Fell Werebear skin for completing the Guardian Druid challenge, and the very awesome feat of strength, Tower Overwhelming for completing the challenge on all 36 specs. Thank you to all the new viewers and subs. We're on the way to hit 2K before the start of next season, and super big thanks to our first super thanks donator, BigFish006, who hit the channel with a £20 donation, the first of its kind on the channel. I'm blown away by that. I'm very lucky and very blessed to have you guys watching my videos. I hope I can bring you the content you're looking for. And if you're still looking to finish up the Underpin fight before the end of Season 2, check out the DPS and tank spec rankings. Those videos linked in the description below, along with our 20+ spec guides for the Underpin fight. Best of luck to anybody still looking to finish that up. So how are we getting 70% versatility in the Mage Tower? It's a relatively simple process. You're going to need a crafted weapon, a crafted piece of armor or offhand, and a Darkmoon Deck Symbiosis trinket. The trinket is made by scribes and is a very reasonable price on the auction house. Your weapon will need to be crafted with a Darkmoon Sigil Symbiosis embellishment. This does not need to be a Spark of Omens or Spark of Fortunes weapon. You can just use one of the blue crafted items that are very inexpensive to make. The same holds true for the armor piece. You do not need a spark to craft this item. You just need a Writhing Armor Banding embellishment. This embellishment will double the effects of your weapon embellishment. Why does this work so well? The weapon embellishment does not scale down in the Mage Tower. You're going to get 146 versatility per stack up to 5 stacks. The armor piece with the Writhing Armor Banding will double this to 292 per stack. And even though the Darkmoon Deck trinket was nerfed to scale down appropriately in the Mage Tower, it still has this weird effect where it's acting to bring up your Writhing Armor Banding multiplier from 2 to 3. This is certainly a product of them sharing the same buff. The math is a little wonky, so for each stack you're going to get 3x the value of 1 stack of your weapon enchant, plus 4. Blizzard has had 7 months to fix this, and they've certainly received the feedback about the interaction. You'll be sitting there with a flat 35% damage reduction and 70% additional damage and healing output. And while this is the biggest buff you can give yourself in the challenge, I would say stick around real quick just for 2 enchant recommendations that will give you nearly 50% increase in your main stat and a sizable bump to your stamina. And those are your War Within leg enchant and chest enchant. The Stormbound Armor Kit will give strength and agility users 123 main stat and 118 stamina. And while the Stormbound Armor Kit does not work for intellect users, the somewhat new Charged Armor Kits do. These will give you slightly less main stat, but work for all 3 stats. Before the Charged Armor Kits came out in Season 2, intellect users did not have a comparable leg enchant, as the tailoring ones simply gave you 20 main stat and 20 stamina. So either of those 2 items is the #1 benefit you can give to your class beyond that 70% versatility. And coming up just on the heels of that enchant is Crystalline Radiance for your chest. This will give you 99 main stat. Again, these 2 will give you over 200 main stat. You're walking into the tower with 400 main stat. This is a very sizable boost. Between that and the 70% versatility, you're going to be more than set to just walk in there and work on your challenge. But of course, there's more. Also, the helmet enchants for this season's Horrific Visions work in the tower. Not sure if they're going to be disabled come Season 3. I do recall Twisted Appendage, Infinite Stars, and Twilight Devastation doing okay numbers, 5 to 10% my damage depending on the challenge. I would also point out that the Cloak enchant, Chant of Leeching Fangs, and the Bracer enchant, Chant of Armored Leech, scale quite generously for the player in the Mage Tower. They will give you over 11% leech. This is fantastic for self-sustain. If you find you don't need the leech or just want another option, you might consider the speed enchants, Chant of Burrowing Rapidity on your cloak, Chant of Armored Speed on your bracers, and Scout's March on your boots. These all scale quite generously, combined 15% additional movement speed. If you're playing War Within, you might already have this taken care of as well. The main stat Blasphemite Gem that also has a secondary effect of run speed, crit damage, or whatever the healer effect is, are also the biggest main stat gem you can get in the tower. It scales down to 24 main stat, and the secondary effect works just the same as it does outside. I would recommend the Elusive Blasphemite, as the run speed's just by far the most significant effect. The crit damage is negligible in every scenario, and the healer effect is a healer effect. Of course, you can boost that secondary effect by using all 5 different colored Algari gems, up to 10% movement speed. And quick reminder, the Elusive Blasphemite gem movement speed increase does not show up on your character sheet, for whatever reason. But if you want another 60 main stat, you can also use the following 3 gems, the Leviathan's Eye, Saber's Eye, and Kraken's Eyes of Strength, Agility, and Intellect. These will give you 23, 19, and 19 main stat. Even after you've used the previous enchants and gem I've recommended, this will be another 10% main stat, and you can obtain these very easily on the auction house. And if you want to go just a little bit further, the Battle for Azeroth consumables, Greater Flask of the Currents, Greater Flask of the Undertow, and Greater Flask of Endless Fathoms will give you the biggest primary stat boost of any flask you can use. And for damage potions, the Superior Battle Potions of Strength, Intellect, and Agility will give you the biggest boost in the tower. The Abyssal Healing Potions from the same patch will give you the biggest heal in the Mage Tower. And though not from that patch, the Borealis Blood Sausage from Battle for Azeroth will give you the biggest main stat boost of any food you can use. The Feast of the Midnight Masquerade from War Within no longer gives you 400 main stat, that's long been killed off by Blizzard. And for Augment Runes, they all scale down to either 7 or 11 main stat, and you can find a lot of the old ones very cheap on the auction house. And really, that's where I would draw the line for my recommendations on the Mage Tower. At this point, you're going to be 95% as strong as you possibly could be, but if you really want to get into it, I'll just point out some goals that you would have for other pieces of gear. Your goal with older gear would be to find gear that's low enough to accept the optimal scaling enchant for the Mage Tower, while having the maximum amount of sockets. We'll just go quickly, piece by piece. I'm going to leave out stuff like Chromie Time, but that's no fun for anybody. That's some degen stuff. I don't know a single person that actually goes that far. I've not even seen anybody outfitted with Chromie Time stuff in the Mage Tower, and believe me, I hang out there more than I should. Important to know that no class bonuses work in the Mage Tower, but things like the Mechagon Ring bonuses do. I think there's still combo items like that found in the Archway and the Court of Stars, but you'd basically be farming Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King content for old gear with max sockets, as those can all accept the older enchants. The Mage Tower scales down to 120 item level. Any instance content in the game actually drops item level above that, so you could technically farm the whole game for stuff, but Burning Crusade and Late Wrath items are the only ones with large number of sockets that don't also penalize your main stat for having those sockets. Keep in mind, during Burning Crusade, stamina was also part of the item budget, so if you have a high stamina item, you're likely going to miss some secondary stats or primary stats, but simply searching the 5-man dungeons for your different types of helmets will show you a good variety of different helmets. Some will have 10 main stat, some will have 14, some will have 27 secondaries, some will have 10, but they'll all have a meta socket and a prismatic socket and a socket bonus. But as we stated earlier, you're probably sticking with the Season 2 helmet from War Within to use your Horrific Vision enchant. Hopefully those still work in Season 3. The Alliterative Pendant of Impending Perils is a blue crafted item from Dragonflight. This comes with a socket, and you can add 2 additional sockets with a rank 2 and a rank 3 tiered medallion setting, and then you can just put the gems you're already using in there. But if you do get this crafted at item level 319 or lower, you can use Mark of the Trained Soldier, which is a Legion neck enchant, to get another 14 mastery. The extra gem slot you get from this might be reason enough to do it, and Mark of the Satyr doesn't do any damage, so don't really go for that old best in slot option. For shoulders, you could find yourself 1 to 2 socket options, and you can even outfit those with the Greater Tiger Fang, Greater Tiger Claw, and Greater Crane Wing inscriptions from Mist of Pandaria Inscription. These will be like 7 or 10 main stat and a little bit of stamina. And again, min-maxing your older gear and enchants is going to be a drop in the ocean compared to the double and triple primary stat boost that we recommended in the first half of the video. For cloaks, you're basically looking for any cloak that's over 120 item level that has a socket. You can then put the classic enchant Minor Power, which is 6 main stat, onto that cloak. If you do have access to the Mist of Pandaria legendary cloaks, you can buy them again to get them at a relevant item level. I think if you have your OG cloaks, they are squished under 120, but you can go back to Tavern in the Mist and drop a bunch of money on it, but still loses a little bit of primary stat from that socket. This will be better than not having a cloak with a socket and not having a cloak you can use minor power on. But again, these are hairs we are splitting. Chest piece, no matter what, you're sticking with War Within with Crystalline Radiance. With bracers, you do have some options with 2 sockets. Again, you want to stick with Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King stuff. Otherwise, those sockets take away from the primary stat on that item. And if you're an intellect user, you can put Eternal Insight, which is 17 main stat, on that bracer. Otherwise, you can use Exceptional Strength for 7 strength and Greater Agility for 7 agility on your bracers. For gloves, same deal. Up to 2 sockets from Burning Crusade or Wrath content. And you can toss the Shadowlands enchant Eternal Strength on there for 17 main stat. Agi users can use Major Agility for 7 agility. And intellect users, you're pretty much down to Superior Haste for 11 haste or Exceptional Spell Power for 5 spell power. There might be one in there I've missed, but again, the hairs we're splitting are so small. There are plenty of belts with 2 sockets and a primary stat socket bonus. You can use either an Eternal, Ebon Steel, or Living Steel belt buckle to add an additional socket. For legs, there are no options anywhere close to War Within legs with a Stormbound or Charged Armor Kit. For boots, you can have up to 2 sockets. There might be one with 3, I can't quite remember. But agility users can use Eternal Agility from Shadowlands to get 17 main stat on the boots there. Otherwise, you could get 10% movement speed and a small amount of stats from Lava Walker, or Tuskar's Vitality, or 5 versatility from Greater Versatility. We're officially scraping the bottom of the barrel. And for your rings, I would honestly just stick with your War Within rings. You're going to have 2 sockets on those, and your best enchant is going to be Radiant, Haste, Burst, Crit, or Mastery anyway, and that's again a War Within enchant. And as for trinkets, of course, if you're doing the versatility, use the Dark Moon Deck Symbiosis for that. There's very few trinkets that have stood the test of time. They usually get nerfed preemptively for the Mage Tower or relatively quick. If you can get an unstable Arcano Crystal from Withered Gem, who I think is up every 16 weeks, I don't know if they changed the rotation on that one, that's got a lot of stats. Or the Chipped Soul Prism from Supreme Lord Kazakh in Tanan Jungle from Warlords of Draenor. Another common recommendation you see is a Ravaged Seed Pod from Nithendra in the Emerald Nightmare. This is the first raid in Legion, and she is the first boss in the raid. Not every class can coin this, but you can coin it repeatedly from the LFR queue up in Dalaran. And if you're not a class that can coin it, you can simply run it in the LFR to get it to drop, and if not, you can go out to the raid and run it on normal, heroic, and mythic to see if it drops on those difficulties. This is simply a haste passive with an on use that does damage, so anybody can effectively use it. But really for trinkets, I wouldn't recommend looking for anything else. I would just stick with some normal stat stick trinkets or a main stat with a secondary proc or secondary with a main stat proc. You're really not going to get too far away from 10 to 15 passive stat and then a 20 to 30 proc stat. I would typically avoid things that have a static on-use damage effect. Those are typically scaled down to nonsense. Anything with a percentage proc is scaled down to nonsense, and they really do an okay job at targeting things that are super busted anyway. There are some tank trinkets that can be okay. The Chrome Bustable Bomb Suit from Gallywix is a haste passive with a pretty big absorb even after the Mage Tower scaling. That's something you could effectively run if you have it. I would be surprised if any of your best in slot Mythic Plus or raid trinkets from this tier are going to be super effective in the tower. And goodness, that's probably it. Good luck if you're going to go farm any of that old gear. I would reserve that for just a passion project or something to do, instead of feeling like you need to do it to get the tower finished. The first 6 or 7 minutes of this video will probably have you covered. Good luck to anybody finishing up Mage Tower challenges before the end of this season. Good luck to anybody on the Underpin fights. I'm looking forward to the Season 3 Delve boss. And again, we're going to hit you with guides for that early on. Let me know what specs you're playing so I know which specs to prioritize. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay in the loop for those guides and the Season 3 release of our Mage Tower guides. Like this video if you liked it, and to help promote it across YouTube, share this one with your friends and hit me up in the comments. We're getting close to 2,000 subs. We can probably hit that before the start of the next raid tier. Thanks so much to all the new viewers and subs. You guys are great. And again, special shout out to Big Fish 006 who hit the channel with our very first super thanks donation, a £20 donation. Thanks so much. Thanks to all of you guys that watch and comment and interact with the video. It means a lot to me. I have a good time doing this. Really looking forward to Season 3. Best of luck in all your endeavors. And of course, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day or evening. Peace.